Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning. It's a nice day here in Tallinn today. Hey, Nico, how are you? Good morning, good morning.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you? Oh, now we got the flags. That's
Yes,
nice.
yes, I can see. I can see. There's a proud Swedish flag, proud German flag next to yours, and proud Polish flag with the Karolina. That's a nice little update. Yeah, I like it.
Looking good. Looking good.
Yeah, yeah, very nice, very nice. How is everything on your end today, Nico? How's everything in Germany?
All good. All good in Germany. Weather's quite good. So I'm more the northern type of guy. So Pierre, that's why the both of us get along so well, right? So the weather as of now is around 20, 25 degrees Celsius, and the sun is shining. So all good, awesome. I like it.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I came over to Tallinn here yesterday evening, actually, so I'm not too far away from Germany, if you could say that. Here with the guys of YOLO Investments. I know that Steve here in the audience is part of YOLO as well, and here for a little conference. Actually, it's nice to see that the world is somewhat heading that direction where we can travel and meet each other again. So I'm happy to kind of be able to do that. What have you been up to lately, Nico? Anything interesting?
Um, of course, we've been up to quite a lot of interesting things all around in Germany. But I'm looking forward to actually take my little girl back to my parents, as they have not been able to see the little one, so my daughter, for quite some time. And there will be this family reunion. So I'm really looking forward to this one as well. And as you said, I'm also looking forward to actually meet and greet each and everyone within the group and all around our beautiful iGaming industry as well. So this is one of the things I really look forward to, and I also look forward to meet and greet the Austrian guy, Robert. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good morning. I'm looking forward to meeting everyone in person as well. I probably don't won't know how to do proper conversations with real people anymore. Let's see.
I wouldn't underestimate our little lovely clubhouse chats here, to be honest with you. But yeah, seeing each other in person is obviously preferable. So I agree. But Bogdan, good morning to you as well. How is everything?
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Well, everything seems to be fine. Weather is good outside, although we had another little storms. But
I see. I'm not sure if it's my connection that's bad or Bogdan's connection that's bad, but he disappeared for me. I'm not sure if I'm the only one.
Can't hear him either.
Okay, okay. We'll jump back to Bogdan in a little bit. Until then, Peter, good morning to you as well. How is everything? Where are you in the world? Are you by any chance in Tallinn?
Good morning, everyone. I'm actually on my way to Tallinn in a few hours, so I'll be there
Woo!
later this afternoon. Are you there?
Yes, I landed. I
Great.
landed last night. So,
Great.
well, I
I'll
don't know
see
if
you
that's a
tonight
good or
then.
bad sign for my. If you ask my liver, that's probably not a good sign. But if you ask my heart,
I'll,
it's a.
well, look, then the plan is set. We'll meet later tonight. So, yeah, looking forward for the event. For those that don't know, we have, Coingaming is organizing a Partners Day in Tallinn, so that should be very much fun. And yeah, um, otherwise, all good. July is rather slow in terms of day to day, but yeah, it's summer. Everyone's enjoying vacations. Lots of planning, lots of preparing for next upcoming work season. Let's call it that way. But yeah, and yeah, hope everyone's well too.
Well, you know, if the if I had one of those air horns, that like DJs blows and stuff like that when there's something special happening, I would blow it right now because there's a special week today for the iGaming industry. Actually, um, for the first time ever, an iGaming company a pure iGaming company is the biggest gambling company in the world by market cap measured. Does anyone want to take a guess who that is?
But that must be a really good live dealer's product.
Potentially.
And RNG
Potentially.
and RNG included too, right? And starts with E.
Potentially. It starts with E and it ends with Volution.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
so
amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So Evolution is now taking the first spot from Sands in Las Vegas as the biggest gambling company in the world with a market cap of 38 billion USD. That is absolutely insane. And fun fact, Evolution is now exactly one IGT bigger than the second place, which is Sands. So there you go. And not only that, but 3 out of the 4 biggest gambling companies in the world by market cap are now iGaming companies. It's the changing of the guards, my friends. We have Evolution coming in at first place at the moment. Sands second, which obviously is a land-based operator, albeit they are now going into digital as well. Sands have a market cap currently of 34.6 billion, so about 4 billion less than Evolution. Third place is Flutter with a market cap of 30 billion USD. And fourth is DraftKings of nearly 20 billion USD. So we have the first, third, and fourth place in Evolution, Flutter, and DraftKings. Changing of the guards. It's quite interesting. And just for the sake of going down the list here, the number 5, 6, 7, and 8 is Caesars, number 5 at 19 billion. Number 6 is Aristocrat with 19 billion as well. 7, MGM Resorts at 19 billion as well. And number 8 is Wynn Resorts at 12 billion. So there you go. That's we can pat ourselves on the back as an industry this week, I think. Nico, what's your thoughts on this? Was it expected from your end? What do you think the future is going to hold? Who are going to be the winners as we go forward?
We will see. So there are quite a lot of deals already lined up, and I'm pretty sure that as of now, each and everyone is heading over to the US, the promised land. But let's wait. Also, Ukraine is doing good as being the hub for all Eastern Europe gaming companies, or to actually enter the Eastern Europe part. But Evolution for sure is quite strong. But I'm pretty sure that possibly we will see another rising star. You know, we have the NYSE IPO of gambling.com. They're also filling up their pockets. Maybe an affiliate company like Better Collective will finally become an operator. So there are so many thrilling things which we as of now can just imagine. Or maybe Google just decides, or Alphabet decides to enter the gambling spot as well. So I'm pretty sure there will be quite a lot of shifts which we as of now can just not expect.
Absolutely. So currently I'm looking at the market cap of Better Collective. Let's see, they are listed in Stockholm. Better Collective market cap of around 1 billion. In euros, so around 1 billion euro. Let's see what Catena Media is at. That would be interesting. Catena Media market cap 4.4 billion. That seems like it doesn't make sense. I might completely get the wrong numbers at the moment. Feel free.
440 million. That's in SEK. 4.4 billion in SEK.
4.4 billion in SEK. Yeah, that's correct.
So it's 440.
Right. So 440 million euro market cap for Catena Media and around 1 billion for Better Collective. So a lot of room for growth, obviously, especially in the States where a lot of players are being acquired at the moment. It'll be very interesting actually to see what the quarterly report of Catena Media and Better Collective will say, because Catena Media's share price have been falling actually quite significant over the last month and a half or so, they've been falling about, I think, around 10 to 12% or something along those lines. Whereas the industry seems to think that Catena Media, especially, and Bet Collective are primed for a massive quarterly report, considering, again, the growth in US. So it will be very interesting to see what's going to happen on that front. But yes, from one thing to another. Nico, I know that you have been hard at work preparing just an incredible summary here of what's happening in the iGaming industry over the last week. Do you want to go through it, please?
Yes, thank you for handing over the mic once again. So I'm just giving you a short heads up. So Saxony-Anhalt, where the German gambling authority is based, they just appointed Mrs. Anne Poggemann as the first officer of the German gambling authority supervisory unit. So she will be joined by Mr. Bentner, who is considered as a liberal, and Mr. Franke. Mr. Franke, he took several tier one operators to court. So it will be quite thrilling to see how, in the end, the fire and the water will get along. So we will just see how things turn out in Germany. Then Tipico is agreed on a $90 million deal with the US Today owner Gannett. So Tipico will become the exclusive sports betting and iGaming provider for Gannett, who is the owner of USA Today, the USA Today network, and a range of other local media assets across the US. And quite interesting, they are replacing the MGM Entain joint venture BetMGM. So Tipico is replacing them and stepping foot or heading over to the US. And then something quite interesting in Germany as well. So the Gauselmann Group, they finalized on an acquisition of the Westspiel Group. So if you're quite familiar with Germany, the Westspiel Group, they are operating 4 retail casinos in Germany, which are based in Aachen, Bad Oeynhausen, Dortmund, and Duisburg, with over 900 employees. And now the Gauselmann Group just took over these 4 casinos. So it would be quite interesting would have been part of these kind of negotiations, but we will just see how things will turn out. And then something arising on the horizon, the European Commission is launching an investigation into the FDJ monopoly. What is the FDJ? So the FDJ is a France-based lottery and retail betting shop, formerly state-owned, and the operator has had the rights since its foundation to actually offer lotteries and sports betting or betting in the French premises or in France. And it was privatized in 2019 with a roughly 1.9 billion IPO. And this no longer then state-owned operator paid 380 million euros to get the exclusive rights to offer lotteries and retail betting for 25 years. And we will just see how the European Commission will tackle or deal with that kind of monopolization. Heading over to the US and Canada, we are seeing further numbers from Tennessee. So the betting revenue bounced back a little bit, roughly 8.5% based on the main numbers. And now in June, we rose up to $174.5 million wagered. In Colorado, sports betting stake, they took a dip of 10%, valuing roughly $230 million. So 10% down comparing to the May numbers, and roughly 89% of these stakes result in online revenue. Then FanDuel, they are launching their standalone casino product in New Jersey and their live dealer in Michigan. And this is also backing what Pierre just told, because the gambling operator FanDuel, they launched their online casino product in New Jersey and they expanded their offering in Michigan with the live dealers. Games they are buying from Evolution. So ringing a bell, what Pierre just said about Evolution and the market cap. So we will see even bigger numbers from Evolution based on the added revenues from New Jersey and Michigan. Another interesting point is Caesars and the New Orleans Saints. They confirm a 20-year and worth at least $138 million Superdome naming deal. So Caesars, they announced in December 2020 that they will invest $325 million into their New Orleans-based premise. And as of now, they signed the deal with the New Orleans Saints to rename the Superdome to the Caesars Superdome. And that's quite interesting. And this has also passed legal authorities as well. And then last but not least, in US, the sports wagering bill in Massachusetts passed the House. So the overall licensing process is on track and ready to pass the next stage. So after a bill has passed the state of House, it's referred to the committee on Senate, and then it will be finally put into law. So the overall licensing process in Massachusetts is on track. From the M&A side, we are seeing the long anticipated Gambling.com group confirmed a lower pricing for their IPO. So the IPO price was estimated to be between $11 and $13 per ordinary share, and they shut the cost until to $8 per share. And based on this estimation price of $8, they are expecting to raise between $80 and $90 million. Then Playmakers acquired Yardbreaker in a deal which could be worth up to $24 million. So the digital sports media company Playmaker, they have acquired Yardbreaker, a digital media property focused on publishing sports and entertainment news and information. So as said, we are seeing the last week has not been quite active with respect to M&A activities, but we have already seen big companies filling up and topping up their pockets. So there will be big deals just waiting on the horizon. Heading over to regulation and legal. So the Belgium government, they set to cut the weekly deposit limit from the existing 500 euros per week to 200 euros per week. So the Belgium's Council of Ministers, they approved a draft law that would lower the country's weekly deposit limit to 200 euros. So the 500 euros deposit limits, they have been active since April 2020. So we see that even the authorities are literally taking player protection very, very serious. Heading over to Africa, Sport Pisa might be facing a 2.7 million pounds claim over the Kenyan Rugby Federation, the Kenyan Rugby Union. They agreed on a sponsorship deal back in the days, and Sport Pisa has terminated this sponsorship deal in January 2018. And now this is taken to court, and we are thrilled to see the actual outcome. And last but not least, the Ukraine regulator blocked roughly 600 illegal gambling sites. So if you just remember, week after week, we are speaking about further operators and service providers being licensed in Ukraine. And as of now, the Commission for the Regulation of Gambling and Lotteries in Ukraine, named CRAIL, they are also taking their taking their part of the business quite serious and blocking illegal websites. So as said, we are seeing authorities taking their job serious. Yeah, that's it from my end.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nico. Fantastic wrap up here. At the same time, I see that Tim has come into the room. Good morning, Tim, from sunny Tallinn. It's nice to be here.
Morning from next door here.
Can feel the anticipation in the air, so happy to be here as well. Tim, you posted here a link as well that we another news for this story that the French regulator have blocked access to stake.com and CBET. Can you explain a bit further here what happened?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not sure, I'm just reading this from the news portal, but obviously the French regulator doesn't allow casino sites for many, many years, and there's been a number of operators over the years using a Curaçao license to access the French market. Traditionally, just like in Ukraine, the ISPs or the Lithuanian ISPs or Greek or whatnot, now the French are obviously doing this as well. However, in the article, they said that given the size of those two sites, Stake and CBET, they wanted to come out and publicly name and shame because of their size in that marketplace and to block them. And there was even written up in local French, I think Le Monde also wrote about it as well. So the French regulator is certainly taking it quite seriously. But just shows you, in my opinion, that if players want to play, let them play. And the government says it's very, prohibition doesn't work, as we all know from the Americas in the 1930s. I don't understand why the French government won't put a regulation in place in 2021 to allow a good regulated framework, a la Germany or the upcoming Netherlands, or the Danish is a great model. Why the French are still not allowing that to happen? But just interesting, they've come out so publicly slamming these two sites for offering. I don't know if it's illegal gaming, but certainly non-regulated gaming in the jurisdiction.
Interesting news for this story as well. Is there anyone who have a kind of experience working with the French regulator or the French market in the room at the moment? Or perhaps, Tim, you have an experience with France in general? Where do you think this is?
We don't. I mean, talking with the Curaçao regulator, they're very strong about obviously no US, no Dutch, and certainly no French. And I asked them about it. It's because the REJ, or whatever the name of the regulator is, had complained to the Curaçao regulator, and that's why most Curaçao license against the terms and conditions, it's not allowed to play. I believe they have obviously poker and sports betting, but it seems a very backward move not to have iGaming or casino gambling allowed in that jurisdiction. Certainly, there's a lot of operators out there who will bypass the market because there's a thirst and desire from the players to play. So it's a bit of a cat and a mouse issue that I think we're starting to see this a lot more in Europe these days. Obviously, the Dutch regulation and the German one, the question is, will you go white or will you stay grey? It's on the tips of many operators' tongues. And it's a shame that the operator's got to be thinking about this rather than let's get licensed, let's do it properly, let's pay our tax and get on with life and put the customer in the centre of the universe. So it's a shame that the regulators try and block it in such a way.
Fair enough. I have a question for you as well, Tim, on the topic of Curaçao. A couple of weeks ago, we had Peter Paul de Joy in the Clubhouse chat, and he is basically representing NOGA, which is the industry organization representing the iGaming industry in the Netherlands. And he had a quite interesting insight, because I'm probably gonna butcher this now, but the Netherlands and Curaçao is let's say that I'm not sure exactly what is the right word.
Dependency. of the
Yeah,
Dutch
yeah,
government,
exactly.
of the Dutch state. Yes.
Something along those lines. Yeah, and basically, Curaçao has been under a lot of pressure now because of the pandemic, and they needed legal and monetary aid, which the Netherlands have provided on the basis that there's many different bases, but one of the requirements is that they take the Curaçao gambling license and basically try to get it more reputable. In other words, let's not use the license for questionable licensees. And Peter Paul the Choice prediction was that this could potentially cause quite significant changes to the license system in Curaçao. I don't know if you have heard the same thing, Tim, or if you can reiterate, or if you have any insight on this topic. It's quite complex, I understand, but
certainly. A couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or two, there was obviously, yes, the Curaçao state needed money, and the Dutch jumped in, and certainly, I think it was about 900 million they offered them, or thereabouts. And one of the requirements was you need to tighten up the structure of your licensing process, and specifically around not allowing people to work within the Dutch market, taking Dutch players under the provision of a Curaçao license. Further that, obviously, the Curaçao license unfortunately doesn't have the best reputation in the world, so they have now become a lot stronger in their KYC and DD and framework of what's required, and finally, the four master licenses have actually taken a lot more of an active role in making sure operators are operating above board. Again, I think this is a great thing. It's not something to be shied against. We're not in 2005 anymore. It's not the Wild West. In general, in the market, it's the Curaçao license is not given much credence whatsoever, which is a shame because in some territories a gaming license doesn't really do anything if it's not adhered to or not regulated properly. So I think there's a net positive that the Curaçao government is now making a lot more stringent. One of the benefits, just from our perspective, is it is a low cost gaming license which ticks boxes for needs. So there's not exactly a massive revenue generation coming through underneath the Curaçao license for the Curaçao regulator. So that's probably a little bit why they've been hands off and not making it more stringent. But then again, if now the requirements from the Dutch government to Curaçao is to do this better and stronger, it can only be a better thing in the long term. Now that said, similar conversation with operators. What do we do now? And most people would often got a Kanawaki license if they still wanted to try and slip into the Dutch market undetected or in a grey fashion, or similarly in the German market. So I think there is a herd of operators who will always be looking for the least resistance gaming regulation with which they can satisfy PSPs and banks and game suppliers just by having that green box ticked, which is sort of counterproductive in the long term. But not everybody operates to the highest morals and principles in the gaming world, unfortunately. Although I think it is less. There's less and less dubious operators than there was 10 to 15 years ago.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for that. It's super interesting to hear kind of you laying out that front. Is there anything else, any other of the panelists here today that have any input on the Curaçao side of things? Bogdan, I saw you flashing your mic here a little bit. Is there anything you'd like?
Well, yes, maybe not on the Curaçao, but the topic which has, or actually the country which has been mentioned in, previously, France. I was just want to apologize. I get a call earlier when you've been asking how the things are on the very beginning, but that's not related with this. Actually, I read an information which might be quite important for us, and don't know if you've seen this. But the France gambling regulator issued a warning last week, or actually this week, to all the operators after reviewing their betting practices during the Eurocup. So according to them, all the operators crossed the line with marketing activities, and the number of ads has been too great. So shortly speaking, they are expecting that operators will cut back, or new regulation will be implemented. And that's actually quite a big threat, because for the entire industry, even though they've been specifically saying about the ads during the Euro, so the ones issued from the ones run from the sportsbook companies, but pretty same statement has been vocal from UK, and majority of participants stated they want to have a total ban or all kind of active advertising and activities made from the gambling operators, and this is related to both sportsbook and the casino and other gambling activities. So I think that is quite a move, and we should be expecting that the regulations soon will be in place, because we see already that these regulations are taking place in the countries where they run their own licenses and having the actually the nationalized sort of gambling regulations. But that is something which is related to France and the topic which has been before, and just want to point out that this is quite a big news if it's going to be effective. So tough times ahead.
Yeah, interesting. Once again, it seems like there's headwinds in the European regulatory landscapes from pretty much all angles. I mean, is for you guys who have much better insight than me, looking at the European markets, is there any markets that we see a more sustainable future in, let's say, or a brighter future? Is there any regulator that is working in favor of the iGaming industry in a better way, would you say, or is the direction clear from all markets in Europe that we are heading towards stricter regulation?
No.
Great. Okay. Next question.
Look,
Go ahead.
it's an interesting one. I still believe that the regulators, they're meant to be trying to develop a framework to allow commerce and protection of players to happen whilst earning tax. The three elements to a successful gaming regulation. And I just don't think the regulators have enough skill, well, not skill, they don't have enough experience in the operator side or even the player side to understand what needs to happen to allow this to flourish. I do look, and from my reading, that the Danish model has worked brilliantly. I think the Estonian model is very, very good as well. But you look at the Portuguese one, crazy tax rates. You look at the German one, crazy tax rates. The Italian one, they were more concerned about cutting out those land-based video slots that used to be present in Sicily and the betting terminals, whatever they're called. There's a very fine balance, and I think we've just seen the Ukrainian regulation go through, and there was a lot of conversation between operators and government. But then the government changed their working party who was organising it and came out with ridiculous tax rates, which were simply impractical. And it's hard to find that balance. But if the government can put a regulation in place which allows players to be protected and money to be made for the state, a gaming infrastructure will flourish. And you can't just say, well, hang on, lotteries have worked for 30 years at a 30% tax rate. Let's use that. You've got to have some experience in there to understand all the different parties' needs and requirements. If it's done well, it will flourish. I'm not seeing that in Europe at all currently, and I think it's getting worse and worse and worse. So this forces operators to now think a little bit sneakily, what do we do and where do we operate to run our business at maximum efficiency, And from what I've heard on the street, a number of people now looking, say, at Poland and Czech Republic, even though there are gaming regulations there, and how do we attack that market without getting a gaming license because it's too hard to get in the first place? And it's counterproductive, and not everybody is aligned with making this flourish in a proper way.
Great, thanks, Tim. And Robert, I mean, you have boots on the ground, like you are in the epicenter of this strict German regulation. What's your feeling here in general, Robert? Like, how do you think this will play out in the next couple of years? Do you think that there is a way for the regulator to become more to think more sustainable when it comes to channelization rates? Will they understand these arguments when the regulation shows its results?
I want to believe so, and I think we talked about it at length in one of the last chats, or in most of the chats actually. And it's a weird one when you think about it, that we hope for, we hope for dialogue, we hope for meeting the regulator, we hope for delivering input and so on. But consistently, it's a weird one to say this, but consistently, the one factor which helped the best to implement sensible regulation was black market, basically. Yeah. So basically, the best whenever there is like a discussion about regulation, the argument is always, well, look at black market, look at 50%, 30% black market operation, and then that seems to be the only way to wake up the regulator. In a weird sense, the black market operators are delivering a service almost to the states by sort of balancing out regulation and making sure regulation sort of the white regulation can be better. And we talked about it before, and what I missed in Germany a lot, but I'm not that deeply involved politically at all or anything, but it felt like a parallel world. Yeah, we have our world where we talk and we're quite open, and you can find us, and you can sort of, if you just go on LinkedIn, you find people, and there's clubhouse chats, and there's a lot of transparency and conversations going on about these topics, and these are important because there's, like Tim says, there's a lot of nuance, and the nuance is sometimes very clear, tax rate, but there's a lot more nuance in communication, in advertising, in like technology, how to block things or how not to block things, or how to implement things. The timelines, like Germany got the timelines wrong completely. You can say what you want about the tax rate, but the biggest issue I've had the last year, and also going forward now, is timelines. So they had this toleration regime. It's kind of still active in a way, and that sort of shifted a lot of revenue to like, let's say, MGA operators who didn't follow the rules. Most of the MGA operators are following the rules now. Now it's shifting all to Curaçao basically, and every day passing where licenses are not issued basically makes Curaçao operators stronger in Germany. And it's funny. It's like, I thought about this the other day. It's like, well, you almost got to thank the black market operators for basically slapping around the regulators, because that seems to be the only way consistently over the years, over the decades, which made people rethink. And that's also how it worked with Germany in sports betting. When Odset, the state monopoly, basically back then monopoly provider, had like a 3% market share compared to private operators. I think everybody understood in the political process that something had to be done. So yeah, that's roughly my thinking.
To give you a short update about timelines in German regulation, and to give you a feeling of this, I wouldn't call it madness, but as Robert already pointed out, the quite anticipated milestone planning. So for all the sports betting operators who had been licensed under the old gambling treaty, they had the chance, or I wouldn't state like they were forced to do so, but they needed to hand in their kind of milestone planning to with a specific date, at what date they will be able, or they will have been able to implement the new requirements, and they had to hand this milestone planning into the authority, which is still based in Darmstadt for sports betting only, by the 24th of July. So by end of last week, because 24th of July has been a Saturday. So usually authorities don't work on a Saturday. So it has been pretty much the 23rd of July. Each and every already licensed operator had to hand in the milestone planning with specific dates, at what date they will be able to fulfill the new regulation and new requirements. And this is quite interesting to see. And just backing up the point of Robert, that even the authorities have sometimes, I wouldn't say like no clue, but there is some room with respect to milestone planning and at what specific date new regulations will be put into place.
Brilliant. Thanks for laying that out. I want to switch topic here for a bit and go into the finance side of the industry. Something that interests me a lot, and I know that some of the panelists here are interested in this as well. We mentioned already that we should pat ourselves on the shoulder. Evolution Gaming, an iGaming company, is now the biggest gambling company in the world. For the first time ever, a pure iGaming company is the biggest gambling company, taking over Sands. So that's fantastic. And also, we have taken the iGaming companies have taken 3 out of the 4 biggest spots of the largest market caps in Evolution, Flutter, and DraftKings. So hooray to our industry. It's the changing of the guards. However, at the same time, there's something interesting happening. Last week, there were, let's say, the big 4 Swedish iGaming companies released their quarterly reports. There was Evolution Gaming, Betsson, Kambi, and Kindred all released the quarterly report last week. Now, all 4 of these organizations released fantastic quarterly reports, over expectations of the analysts, and the analysts already had really high expectations on these organizations. Exponential growth, room for more growth in the future, and so on. And still, the share price on the opening days fell for Betsson, Kambi, and Kindred. And for Evolution, the share price was flat, more or less flat, on the day of the report. And the Kambi lost actually, they lost about 13% of the share price on the opening day. Kindred lost something like 5%, Betsson a couple of percent as well. And I follow a lot of the retail and institutional investor forums, and I try to kind of read up what the theories are around this, and it seems to not be very clear why the share price is falling. A company like Kindred, for example, is now trading with a PE ratio of under 10, which basically means that if an organization would want to buy Kindred, they would buy the company at an EBITDA multiple of 10 till 11, which is, you would think that this is very, very low for an organization like Kindred. So I would like to kind of open up a question here of do you guys have any theories of why the share price is falling despite the organizations releasing seemingly fantastic quarterly reports? Is it because of ESG, perhaps, that the ESG funds in Sweden are selling off shares for ESG reasons? Or could there be something else that is behind this? I'd like to open up the discussion here. If anyone have any interesting input to say, if there's silence, I will appoint someone who is forced to give their opinion, essentially.
So before you appoint me, Pierre,
okay.
I'll jump in. Look, the markets are a funny thing, and I was actually talking with some guys within last night and asking the exact same question, and simply is there's more sellers than buyers. It's an efficient marketplace that is based on demand and supply. We would naturally think that if the reports are good and all the numbers are going up, that more people might want to buy these shares. But then I heard potentially it might be some of the Swedish pension funds who are fairly heavily committed to these iGaming companies. They might think, well, we've hit the high mark here. We're happy with the results. Maybe we might exit our position, monitor it, and then if it does go down like Evolution did a month ago, buy back in again. It's I don't know if the Kambis and Unibets and Betssons are paying dividends, if that's the case, but it might be that they think the price has hit its natural plateau, and even if it's just based on good news, while logically we might think the price is going to go further up, people might be saying, well, we've had a good run and it's now time to cash in and collect the profits. I think this is why you have somewhat illogical marketplaces like this, because who is saying whether it should go up or should go down? And it really comes down to trading volumes against demand and supply. I think when you're looking at a stock market from a personal perspective, I like to always look at a long-term perspective. And we talked about evolution the other day, and in a short term it might fluctuate and be volatile, but in the long term, let's take a 2 to 3 year outlook, I believe the stakeholders of evolution are doing the right job for good sustainable growth, and that market entry into the US and whatnot. That if we look over the long term, there's going to be a good 10% increase. Now that's it may well be volatile, a bit like RTP on a slot game, but you do know in the long term it will be 96% or 90% of the German market these days. So yeah, it's a hard one to sort of understand why the market hasn't reacted to what you think it should be doing based on the news given by the companies to the market itself.
Interesting. Thank you, Tim. Peter, anything to add here on your front? I don't know if you have noticed this as well, or if you have any thoughts on the future growth potential of these organizations, or any other inputs that could.
Oh, well, I'm very cautious with comments about this because, like, Relax deal was very interesting, and I just find the market extremely, I wouldn't say aggressive, but insanely different. Like some people shoot for the stars, and some are somewhat reasonable, but it's what makes it interesting, I guess. So yeah, nothing much to add on my side for this.
Fair enough, Peter. I mean, just to reiterate what Tim is saying here, what I hear as well, kind of the kind of let's say a leading theory here is what you mentioned to the Swedish pension funds and the Swedish banks and funds in general have a clear ESG focus, which ESG is essentially environmental, social, and governance, which you can say is basically ESG is ethical investments. So ESG funds focus on investments that are ethical and sustainable for the future of our planet, let's say. And since 2015, a lot of these funds have been divesting from the iGaming industry. And I spoke to the head of investment relations of Gaming Innovation Group a couple of days ago, and he reiterated this as well. He said, he's been doing everything he can to talk to the banks, talk to the funds, like, what do we need to do in order to stop this trend? Like, what do we need to do to get you guys on board? Like, look at our future potential. Like, clearly, we are a company for the future. And the answer is simply no. There is no interest from the Swedish funds to invest into the iGaming industry. And rather than selling off everything that they own, the entire iGaming portfolio at once, what they do instead is they sell they sell bit by bit when the trading volumes are high. So the trading volumes are the highest when the quarterly reports are being released, right? So you want to sell when the volumes are high, so that the share, so that you don't affect the share price negatively, and you lose out on too much money when you are going through with your sale, essentially. And this seems to be what is happening in the market here. But like you mentioned as well, Tim, in the end of the day, the smart money will win, and it seems that the influx of investment into the industry is not coming from Swedish investors, even though these organizations are listed in Sweden, Evolution included. But the investment seems to be coming predominantly from US investors, US institutional and retail investors. And so that has meant that a company like Evolution, which is now worth nearly 40 billion USD, they have pressure on them to do a dual listing in the United States in order for the American investors to, let's say, find them easier. So the speculation is if Evolution will list themselves in the States, which will potentially lift the share price even further. What do you think will happen here, Tim? Do you think Do you think the US is the way to go in the future? Do you think Sweden has played out its role on the stock market as an iGaming organization?
100%. My view would be that they would look for a co-listing on the Nasdaq or in America, and that would then open up more eyeballs and more investment opportunities from the American market. I think the Americans are very one-dimensional in terms of their worldview, and they probably don't know where Stockholm is. And it might seem, they especially don't know where Estonia is, but it might seem a little bit scary for some institutional American investors to invest on the Swedish Stock Exchange. So I think certainly, if it's London or it's New York, that makes perfect sense. And as they continually grow into that market, one would assume then there'll be a further inflow or demand for Evolution shares, and that would naturally, one would assume, lift the share price. But again, it's an irrational market sometimes that doesn't make sense.
That's that's an understatement, I think. Bogdan, a question for you here. If you look at the iGaming industry and the key players within it, this is not investment advice, of course, but what organizations do you see have the brightest future, and which would you question perhaps in their quest to grow in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm looking very closely on what Evolution is doing, and in my opinion, they are doing and they have did everything right. So the brightest future for me, especially after entering the US market, lies on Evolution. And when it comes to the companies which I think somehow lost their momentum, one of the good examples is maybe not such a big conglomerate, but SBTech. That is the company which, from my perspective, has somehow lost the momentum and lost their very good opinion in the gaming industry. As for the other companies, I'm also obviously looking very closely on what Flutter is doing and the DraftKings in the US, and I'm like 100% sure that their focus on the US market's gonna spread shortly also on the European activities. So that's going to be a very, very interesting move from my perspective. And my 2 cents on what you've been talking about the shares, stagnation of the shares, and actually losing the shares after publishing the results from the top leading Swedish companies is one more aspect which should be taken under the consideration. Possible merger and acquisition. That's what might hold the stock market from actually higher valuation of those companies. So there might be something going on in the background which we don't see as of yet, but because of the dynamics, and also we all know that the pandemic time has changed quite a lot when it comes to not only gambling industry but also other industries. Luckily, our industry, especially the online, has been recovering very, very well and been flourishing. But that simply shows some opportunities in this area. So I am expecting more mergers and acquisitions in a very near future. And who knows, maybe shortly we will see some big movements from let's say Betsson Group or some other big actor in the market.
I'm gonna make a bold prediction here and say that I think by the end of the year, I think Kindred will be acquired by a US land-based operator. I cannot see a operator controlling their content that is better positioned to be acquired by a US aspiring iGaming company than Kindred. Honestly, I don't know how they have not been acquired yet, and at such a low valuation as well. So I'm gonna I'm gonna make that bold prediction, and then in a couple of months maybe I'll eat my words, but but I can't see how that wouldn't be a consideration for a US.
But Pierre, when we think about it, you've got MGM with GVS Orientain, you've got Bellies and GameSys. How many Flutter and STATSCORE have done a deal with someone else? Who else is left to come and make that next big merger from the land-based perspective?
Maybe
Yeah,
it's
that
not
would be
going
the
to
argument.
be. Maybe it's not going to be any of the land-based. Actually, maybe we are going to see some movement from entertainment side of the business. So we all know about the plans which Netflix has about the gaming. Who knows? Maybe it's too early, but there are really big players out there who might invest their funds into gaming.
Agreed, but from what I understand of all the American states, when you're getting licensed, you need to have that land-based presence and that casino presence, like in Jersey and whatnot. That said, if not a bad move from a Netflix to do this and to take it
But Kindred
over.
have the licenses already.
They have the land-based casinos, or they got the agreements in place, maybe.
They have the licenses in several US states.
I know Fox Network by the News Corp, they're doing a big push into the Australian market and put out a request for tender for a local bookmaker in Australia to work as a joint venture in that Australian market, Foxbet, but I think they're lined up with the Stars Group already in America as well. But certainly makes sense for a big American entertainment group to get their hands into a regulated environment in the American market.
I'll put a bottle of Lagavulin as a little bet here, and then whoever wants to take it, I'm in. End of the year. Brilliant. Right, guys. I think it's time to round off a little bit today. Fantastic, like always, to have you guys here, and Nico, Karolina, my dear co-moderators, thank you for joining in. Before we round off, actually, Karolina, I know that you were not able to join us here the first 15 minutes, but not sure if you've been managing to listen in here as well. But we'd love to hear if you have anything to chime in with or anything to round off the discussion with today.
No, I think it would be pretty rude to chime in 3 minutes to the end. I was listening the whole time, and sorry for my limited contribution today, but I was just on call until halfway, and then you guys had plenty of interesting insights, so I just happily stayed as a audio spectator to a certain extent.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Karolina. And also, I'll give you guys a final little insight here, because last week, me and Julian Behager, our dear friend of mine and Tim's, we were discussing the Kambi quarterly report here as well, and we were speculating on the fact that the DraftKings is obviously migrating from the Kambi sportsbook, and they will complete the migration by September. Now, we were speculating in how much revenue Kambi is going to lose from pretty much one day to the other as they are migrating away from the platform, and we were speculating around. We were assuming that DraftKings was the biggest client of Kambi at around 20 to 30% of the total revenues. Now we've been kind of lurking around a bit, trying to find this out, and it seems that around 13% of the revenue of Kambi is coming from DraftKings. But interestingly enough, around 35% of the total revenue, 35 to 40% of the total revenue in Kambi is coming from one client, which is Kindred Group. Yes, bingo, Karolina, 10 points. And perhaps that is a case against the future growth of Kambi if a 1 billion plus euro company is at the mercy of one client. And Kindred obviously heading the direction of wanted to control their own content, and the acquisition of Relax Gaming is clearly showing this. And what if they would take the decision to also create their own sportsbook? 40% of revenue in Kambi would disappear overnight. So I would advise people who own shares in Kambi to just take that as a consideration and be aware of that. The risk profile is what it is, so to say, in that organization.
Well, I would say that
right.
the moment Kambi gets off DraftKings, this would be the perfect moment for Evolution to consider buying. Just a little, chime in from me.
Buy Bitcoin. It's not a bull run. It's much better.
do a Tesla. Yes, that's it. Brilliant, guys. So again, thank you so much for today. I hope we share some nice insights. Again, congratulations to us as an industry. We're the biggest gambling company in the world. This belongs to the iGaming industry. So great stuff. We are clearly the future and the present. And with that, I'd like to thank you all. Peter, Tim, I will see you both later today. Really looking forward to it. And the rest of you guys who are in this room, in the audience, thank you guys. And hopefully we'll see you here next week. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day and see you tonight. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.